Is Ole Miss a top 5 team for 2026 with Trinidad Chambliss back? Yes, they are.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Crossover of Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal. I'm your host, Brian Smith, along with Steven Willis of Locked On Ole Miss. Thank you for making each of us a part of your day, each and every day, right here on the Locked On Podcasting Network, the number one sports podcasting network in the land. We are brought to you by Mazda. Today's show is going to be a fun one, and we are going to put that same drive into every detail at Mazda. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there is more to you. I'm going to have some questions for Steven a little later on in the show about expectations, the schedule, how the SEC is going to play out. We're also going to discuss the defense. Can it at least be close to the 2024 level of defense that the Rebels showed? I think it's plausible. I believe that Steven does too, but what has to happen for that to transpire? Ole Miss's offensive weapons. They have not been concerned with that of late, and they probably won't again this year. Is there anybody that people need to know about that isn't already on the radar? We're going to talk a little bit about that. But to start, straightforward, this is not a rocket science adventure here, Steven. In my opinion, now that Trinidad has been granted another year of eligibility, the Rebels should be a top 5 team because they've got a pretty balanced squad, and he's conservatively a top 10 player in college football, regardless of position. I think top 5, but I digress. The point is still the same. This is a top 5 team, and I think it not only helps them for 2026 on the field, I think it helps Ole Miss long-term from a perception standpoint because I think he'll be in New York for the Heisman ceremony, whether he wins it or not. He'll have to earn that, obviously. And I also think just the positive nature. He's a really good young man. He's a guy that's exciting. This is going to help Ole Miss football for years and years to come. What's your take?
I think it would be interesting. Like, if he was promoted at all, he would have been in New York a year ago. He deserved to be in New York.
I thought so too.
Yeah, but he was not promoted at all during the month of that crazy November that happened. So he ended up finishing 8th with no promotion whatsoever. Kewan Lacy ended up a finalist for the Doak Walker Award with no promotion whatsoever. This year, I think that Ole Miss is going to burst on the scene because the narrative got explained that Ole Miss was only winning because Lane Kiffin is an offensive genius. And that isn't what was happening in Oxford. The Grove Collective and all them on the front edge of what's going on. The machine behind the scenes was kind of being built. And what you saw was an Ole Miss team that was able to retain all but 4 players from leaving with Lane Kiffin and 4 coaches from leaving with Lane Kiffin as far as on-the-field coaches. The machine's built in Oxford, Mississippi. It's going to be imperative on Pete Golding is basically just don't wreck the Ferrari at this point. I mean, that's legitimately what's going on. And you mentioned offensive weapons. You know, you go down to the Under Armour All-American game just like I do, and there's been 2 players that just jumped out to me from practice from the time that I've been going. And one of which was Zach Branch, and he's obviously at Georgia, so we're not going to talk too much about him. The other was Jonte Cook. He's a guy that made plays. He has a really impressive catch radius. He's twitchy, all of that stuff that you want on a slot receiver. And it came down, he needed to mature a little bit. I'll just leave it at that. In Texas and Washington, he got to Syracuse where it was kind of isolated a little bit to where you kind of just had football, and all of a sudden he put up 60 catches and became the go-to guy. And once he gets to Oxford, Mississippi, where the nearest decent-sized city is an hour away, I think this kid's going to blow up. I literally think that Jonte Cook is about to put up an Elijah Moore type year.
If they can get him to go along with Honeycomb and a nice room with tight ends. And
Caden Lee's in Missouri now.
Oh, Caden Lee left. I did not know that.
Yeah. He went with Austin to Missouri.
I can't say I blame him. Austin's pretty good too, but that's unfortunate, but they still have a lot of receivers. Wide receiver in Ole Miss, is the last of my concerns.
Yeah. I don't even look at the spring competition at wide receiver because it's like at 15 years in a row at this point. They're going to figure it out. They've got the reputation of being able to figure it out. The tight end room's getting there very, very quickly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the two positions that are on my mind right now is like the offensive tackle position and the linebacker position. Those are probably the two positions going in, and that's probably the difference between 9-3 and 11-1, if we're going to be completely honest.
It's probably that way for a lot of teams. Let's start at linebacker. Nobody has linebackers that can cover in today's world because you got to go against slots and stuff. It's not going to work. You just need to be serviceable. But getting Pirelli and just having more experience and having Perkins back, I don't know. They'll probably use him in different ways. That's a pretty good starting point. And then at offensive line, like they got some good players coming back and they added some portal pieces, which is my next question. Which offensive lineman that was added do you think is going to be the most impactful amongst that group?
You know, you might be able to help me out a little bit on this, but the top rated transfer that they got was Carius Curne.
Talent-wise, he's freaky.
Yeah, from LSU. But everybody that I've talked to said that Tommy Kinsler is getting ready. He's getting ready to go. The light's going to come on with this guy. He has the ability to do it. His high school and all that, I think we talked about it earlier. If he would have not went where he went, it would have probably had more exposure or something like that.
Oh yeah, he's from Ocala and he played in a small school.
And I like those. But Terez Davis, who started as a true freshman at Maryland, he's probably going to be the left tackle for Ole Miss. So the question becomes, who's going to be the right tackle? And it's going to be a three-man weave, essentially, of Connor Hawes, who's from Osceola High School in Kissimmee. And you have Carius Curne and Tommy Kinsler, and they're going to fight it out. It's basically going to be a knife fight over the course of spring. And if you can get those two positions right, you still have the interior of that offensive line that resulted in Kewan Lacy just being a dude towards the end of last season. You figure out the tackle, especially on the run game part. I think that's the thing that everybody needs to worry about. Trinidad Chambliss can make do with the tackles no matter what Ole Miss has. He's so great at escaping. He makes that work. If there's some good run game tackles for Kewan Lacy, that offense goes from almost impossible to stop to just not stoppable.
Yeah, they could be a team that averages 38, 40 points a game. And even against most SC. Are they going to do that against Georgia? Maybe, maybe not. But they even scored a bunch against them last year. So if the O-line steps up, maybe they do. So it's possible. I'm curious to see how much they turn Trinidad loose to throw because of Lacy in the backfield. And as Steven, as you know, that's a good problem to have. So when we come back, we'll talk a little more about the offense, but we also need to dive into the D. This is a team that has been known as an offensive unit, first and foremost, and it should have been the last several years. But in 2024, that defense was really good. Could this be a year where the Rebels kind of take that step forward and have another elite level defense? When we come back, we're going to discuss that on this crossover, Locked on Ole Miss and Locked on the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Mazda, moving the game forward for those who see that there is more to the score than what is on the screen. And Trinidad Chambliss is that guy, not just for Ole Miss, but for college athletics. Playing at Ferris State, a Division II institution, taking his game to Ole Miss and not just doing well, but like inspiring the country because he came off the bench early in the season. He had to be that guy, and he was dominant. So dominant, now he's one of the most coveted players in college football, and the Rebels will be better for it. These types of situations are rare, and it's what it takes to really raise the bar. It's the extra work off the field for Trinidad, and it's that dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire of the grit, and that I never quit. We put that same passion into every model at Mazda, highlights that make the real. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there is more to you. We are also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Ever wanted to take in the NBA Finals in person, live? FanDuel is giving you that opportunity. live out that dream with the NBA sweepstakes. Here's how the sweepstakes work. Use your profit boost in the FanDuel app with any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered to win an NBA Finals trip for 2 flights, tickets, the whole shebang with FanDuel. So if you've got an idea who you want to pick to win it, this is your time. Cash your opportunity with FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on NBA future to get entered into the chance to win an NBA Finals trip. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you want to take your game to the next level with Locked On Ole Miss or the portal down below, the Everydayer Club. In my opinion, the best part, if you're an audio guy like me, you're on the go, $5 a month or $50 for the year. No ads with your audio. And there is a Discord and more. Just check it out down below. Locked On has got you covered with the Everydayer Club. Steven, the offense, I think, is pretty clear. It's going to be really, really good. We know that. But besides Kewan Lacy, besides Trinidad, they've got good players up front, tight end room, etc. They got balance. Is there anybody, though, that maybe somebody doesn't know about? If you want to add one more piece, is there an up-and-comer, a sophomore, anything like that? Who's the newbie that not just Ole Miss fans, but college fans need to know about?
If you're talking about the offense, it's likely Caleb Cunningham, who we've been waiting to go. He waited until the summer to enroll in college, and we all know that if you're in college and you forgave the spring system, you're going to be behind the 8 ball once the football season starts. Well, that's not going to be a problem going into this one, and he's probably likely going to get reps. He is probably that A.J. Brown type, that Jonathan Mingo, that typical Ole Miss big wide receiver that's going to line up on the outside. He's going to carry that role, but there's other pieces. I mean, whenever you've got Daryl Gill, who's the speed demon from Syracuse, Jonte Cook, and don't forget about Deuce Alexander coming back to Ole Miss as well. He honestly is built like a perfect slot receiver, but the way I foresee it is like 2023 when John David Baker was the passing game quarterback and you had 2 of those slot type wide receivers, a dual slot kind of system that we were able to use with Trey Harris on the outside. I think you're going to see a little bit of that.
Well, if they've got that many options and with Kewan and Trinidad in the backfield, again, this is a team that could push 40 points per game. It's not out of the question. Next, defensively, everybody knows that I like Suntarian Perkins if they watch your show with me on it. They've got some other pieces, but Jay Crawford comes over. He was probably Auburn's most consistent defensive player outside of a top 20 pick in the draft, but that's another story. And he was elite. He was one of the top 5 corners in the SEC probably last year. He's coming over to Ole Miss. And they also get Blake Purchase from Oregon, a pass rusher that split time with some elite guys. He's going to get turned loose. Is there anybody else that people need to know about that they added out of the portal that you think is going to be impactful, not named Luke Farrelly?
Edwin Joseph, and that's a guy that you probably are familiar with. Ole Miss had problem at safety last year. They could not play man coverage because if the other team figured out you were in man, they could pick you apart. So that was the thing that Ole Miss had to basically cover up over the course of the season. And doggone it, they almost did it, like 19 seconds away from the national championship game. But Edwin Joseph is that free safety, that ball hawking guy that you can line back. You can put him back at the edge of the defense, and he can kind of turn the other team over, because turnovers were a problem a year ago for Ole Miss because you weren't playing man coverage. And because of that, you had to rush 3 from time to time, which meant the quarterback had more time to throw the football, and everything was disadvantaged over the course of the season. They're going to try and speed him up next year. And you want ball hawks back there. You get Jay Crawford, you get Edwin Joseph, you get Janelle Aguero, you get Shaheed Denson back there on the back end of the defense. You have Antonio Kite coming back, who was the bar none #1 cover player for Ole Miss. Now he's going to have to fight to get on the field. Whenever that happens, all of a sudden you can turn loose that front 7, and whenever they get going, it can get nasty.
I think Suntarian Perkins will have a big year rushing the passer. I'm curious how much Pete and his staff will decide to really send Perkins down in the box and just get after it, and how much he drops. I mean, he drops in coverage some, but if they're going to play more man, I think I would send him towards the line of scrimmage far more often. I'm curious to see what they do. And then our guy, William Eccles, we've talked about him for a long time, interior guy. I mean, they Cam on the edge. Like, they've got some guys. Is there anybody else up front besides Blake Purchase that I mentioned, though, that they're adding, or anybody else kind of coming up the ranks?
Makai Boro, I think that's
the kid from Florida, the big nose.
Yeah. He is a like-for-like transfer for Xavion Harris, just a massive person in the middle. And you had Jaheim Otis. He's a similar type player who was really successful his last time with Pete Golding as the defensive coordinator. More depth on the front line means you can rotate a little bit more, mean that you don't wear out as quickly as you did a year ago. That last drive that Miami ran the ball, Ole Miss was just out of gas. They couldn't switch players on the defensive line. You're basically just hoping to rush at that point. Now you can keep William Eccles fresh. You can keep Cam Franklin fresh, those guys. Blake Purchase on the edge, Suntarian Perkins on the other side to kind of do what they did with Princely and Suntarian a couple of years ago. And when you have Jay Crawford, that takes half the field away. At that point, if you don't have to worry about that, you can get pretty exotic with coverages and blitzes and all of that stuff whenever you don't have to worry about the best wide receiver for the other team.
That makes a big difference. When we come back, I'm going to talk to Steven about some questions. The SEC schedule, who Ole Miss plays. Obviously, the LSU game is big. Are there any worries about being the hunted? Is this going to be the year? There are a lot of things to still get into. That is next on this crossover, Locked on Ole Miss and Locked on the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by Indeed, where hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed-sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, skills, certifications, location, even experience, or a combination. It's up to you with Indeed. If you're hiring, you don't want to be wasting your time just going through resumes either. You want something to get done. You want it to get done in a very short manner and it to be profitable instead of you wasting your time. That's what Indeed is for. And here's a great stat to kind of explain why Indeed's important. Per their data, 27 hires are going to be made in the time that I'm talking with you today. 27. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Again, Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring. Do it the right way with Indeed. Steven, this will be an interesting schedule for the Rebels. If I remember off the top of my head, they've got a really intriguing opening game. They've got a few unique games. Take the LSU game. We'll get to that in a second. That's the low-hanging fruit here. They've got some intriguing games in the back half of the schedule. And they even have, I think, an improving Mississippi State team. It'll be in Oxford, but I think that team will take another step forward. They'll be a quality team. I mean, Ole Miss should beat them, but it's consistent throughout their schedule. There isn't any 3-4 game stretch. You're like, wow, they're just going to smoke all these teams. It's a good schedule. It should, if they go 10-2, let's just say, not only should they make the playoff, they should be probably a top 6 seed. That would be my guess. What are your thoughts on the schedule this year? And are there any oddities that you want to point out?
I think that it's not a good situation that the week after you automatically look at the LSU game. The week after that is at Florida. That's problematic.
Yeah, 100%. I thought the same thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's problematic. I think the game of the year in the SEC could be Ole Miss and Texas, especially when Ole Miss plays a Manning. That adds an extra layer on top of everything. And those two might be the best two teams in the Southeastern Conference next year. You have Georgia. Georgia hasn't beaten Ole Miss, or Kirby Smart hasn't beaten Ole Miss anywhere but Sanford Stadium in Athens in his career. He has a losing record against Ole Miss as he goes. That's going to be a game. It's in Oxford this year. Missouri is the homecoming opponent. That's going to be a difficult thing. Auburn's like sandwiched in between Georgia and Texas, if I'm not mistaken.
That's not great timing.
Yeah, that could be weird. This is a difficult schedule. It is a legitimately difficult schedule, but Ole Miss does have a better team than they had a year ago. So the schedule's harder, the team's better. And honestly, if Ole Miss loses the game, they lose the game because of it. But 9 SEC games, all fans should be in favor of that instead of just saying, hey, we could lose that game, because nobody wants to watch Ole Miss play Georgia State. Nobody. Not a single person. He just line it up, play Vanderbilt, figured out how to make it work, and let's do it.
That's another game, teams.
Yeah,
like
they play in Nashville too.
If you look at the league, Kentucky's starting over. Okay. Mississippi State's getting a little better. Lord only knows what's going to happen with South Carolina. But there are no just gimmies in the league. The league is sandwiched now, squashed down. There is no 2022 Georgia in college football this year. Those days are probably over because of the NIL transfer portal. That might be the last oh my God team we have, because they just their third team D lineman was going to. It was ridiculous. Those days are pretty much over. So I think you have to be more mentally prepared than ever, and that's asking a lot, because you're dealing with 17 to 22-year-olds for the most part, a few 50-year guys a little older. That's not easy to keep them focused. That's why you brought up the game at Florida. We both know the Swamp is no joke. That place is deafening. I saw Florida play a number of years ago against a horrific Vandy team, murdered them, but the fans were still loud as all get. They just are loud. Playing Auburn, I don't care where you play the game. Auburn's going to play hard. They got a new coach. It's pretty good. That's not going to be easy. You got a sandwich game. You got Mississippi State at the end of the year. We always know the Egg Bowl can be funky. It could be 21-16 going into the fourth quarter. Would it be surprising? No. Is Ole Miss way better? Yeah, but it's the Egg Bowl. So there's just different layers to their football schedule. And then, Stephen, you brought up something that I think is true. In some ways, I understand why fans, whether it's Ole Miss or otherwise from the Southeastern Conference, are concerned about the 9 games with the 12 playoff spots. This is year one of really trying to understand, because last year's playoff was goofy. The whole Duke thing with the ACC. There were a million different weirdo things that happened last year. That probably won't happen again this year. Let's hope. Let's make it more simple. That would be great for all of us. And secondarily, I'm curious if they do kind of like with Bama. I didn't think they should have got in because they were so inconsistent last year, but I understood. If you play a decent schedule like Ole Miss and they're 9-3 with a bunch of really close losses, they should get in, and it could be another SEC school too. Just my opinion. What do you think the SEC or the Big, those two conferences, 9-3 is different? It just is. They're harder. Do you think that'll be more the norm, or do you think that's an outlier?
I do think that we are about to get into the era of the 9-3 team making the playoffs, especially once this thing gets to 24 teams, because that's going to happen at some point. They're going to do it, and they're going to get rid of the bowls and the opt-out and all that stuff. Again, that benefits the fans whenever realistic and real games are happening. But we're in that weird transition phase right now, and we want perfection, but don't want perfection. And people don't want to play a 9-game schedule because it could cost them a playoff game. Well, I hate to break it to everybody. Last year, the SEC played an 8-game schedule, and Vanderbilt, who should have been in the playoffs, did not make the playoffs because they lost a road game in the last minutes to the Texas Longhorns. So it happens. There's always a team that gets cut out. If your team gets cut out, that's terrible, but somebody is going to be next year's Notre Dame. There's always going to be one, and it doesn't matter how many people are in the team.
Yeah, because there's always a cutoff. It's just math. I mean, somebody doesn't make it.
Yeah.
You could have made the argument for Texas, Notre Dame, or Vanderbilt. If any of them got in, I would have, and again, the goofiness, with no offense to them, the G6 teams would have got squashed by any of those three, and I'm being kind.
And they got squashed anyway.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. It's just I hated how they did that. And it doesn't matter now, but that's a lesson learned. Can't have that happen again. And we're probably going to end up at 16, I'm guessing. in 2027 or 8 or whatever, it'll at least get to that point pretty soon. It'll probably be, but after 16, I doubt anybody after 16 would ever have much of a chance. But let's be honest, that's about money at that point. But
yeah, the Big Ten's plan that they released is go to 16 for a couple of years and then go to 24. And what you're seeing, in my opinion, what's going on is some of these smaller bowls are going away. The Motor City Bowl that folded, the LA Bowl folded, all of those lower end bowls are starting to fold. And what's going to happen is the playoffs is just going to suck all of the oxygen out of the room and everything's going to become about it.
Pretty much. I agree with that. Besides Texas, Georgia, and Ole Miss, I think most people will pick one of those three to win the league. Is there anybody else that you think has a really good shot, whether it's Oklahoma, Texas A&M, LSU, even like if Aguilar gets the nod at Tennessee, it's not out of the question. He did lead the league in passing in the regular season. Who is the wild card in the SEC next year?
Probably a healthy Mateer Oklahoma would be the wild card next year, because he never was healthy. Even the playoffs, he wasn't exactly quite right. And I'd like to see what it looks like with him being completely healthy. Even whenever they play the lifelong rivals, that is the Ole Miss Rebels, that's another big game for Ole Miss this season in Norman. But I am curious to see what it would look like with John Mateer at quarterback. I think he is the guy. He's the team to fear.
Their defense is nasty. I mean, they got they got the Bowen brothers back. They got multiple D linemen back that are really important. That will not be a fun team to play when you have the ball. That I can assure you. Mateer, from what I was told, got hurt in the Auburn game, which was like game 3 for them. And of course, they never put it on the injury report. Name a coach that you know that gives an accurate injury report on their quarterback. There aren't any.
No.
And Oklahoma was no different. And he didn't run as much. He had a bum knee. It was never reported. Got a sprained knee or some crap like that. But if he's healthy and they can just add like 3-4 more points per game, they will be a very difficult out because the defense will be top 10, almost guaranteed. That Venables is a lot of things, and one of them is elite defense coordinator. There's no doubt about it. He's very, very good at that. Steven, please tell everybody where they can find your work.
Head on over to YouTube to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We are there. You can join us on the Everydayers Club. Sign up for that at lockedonolemist.supercast.com. We have Corey Burton doing an anatomy of play, doing kind of the coaches breakdown of what's going on. You've got Mike Huseman talking about transfer portal, coaching search, and you have Dalen Flowers reporting on the goings on around campus on top of what we do at Locked On Ole Miss. So you can check that out as well.
Appreciate it, Steven. You can find the Portal Podcast all the same places that you find Locked On Ole Miss: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Podbean, and everywhere else. This has been a crossover, Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal.